An inquest into the death of a woman with Down syndrome who died while living in a caretaker's home has concluded her death was a homicide and that she died of starvation and malnutrition. The jury delivering more than a dozen recommendations more than 6 years after Florence Girard's death. Joining us with reaction is Tamara Taggart, president of Down Syndrome BC. Thank you for being here with us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So this was quite a roller coaster ride, very upsetting for so many people. What was your initial reaction when you heard the outcome?
I think I've been in shock that the list kept going, the recommendations kept being read. I think in my head I expected somewhere between 3 and 5. I don't know why, but 13 is a lot. And when it was over, it was just over. And all the lawyers started packing up and the jury was dismissed and it just felt so final and done. And Sharon and I just had a really good cry. I think it was just a release of the last 2 weeks, but the jury, 13 recommendations, that sends a very loud message.
Absolutely. Did anything stand out to you in those 13 recommendations?
I feel like I just kept hearing the word immediate, and that seems surprising to me. An immediate, attention to, getting every home share coordinator, a laptop. It sounds silly, but a lot of people are still taking hand notes. That's how we're looking after 4,300 people who are in home shares in BC. So it's just immediate kept coming up. And it became clear to me that the message was there needs to be a complete reset of community living BC.
A lot of money gets funded or thrown into the funding for these people to watch over people who are in a certain situation that need that kind of help. That obviously wasn't done here.
No.
It's shocking to hear that people would go to check on her, but then didn't even see her.
Yeah, so we
How do you
heard
circle that?
Well, you can't. It's impossible. The reality of it is the last 2 years of Florence's life were horrendous. She was in a tiny room. We saw photos of her room. There was a mattress on the floor. She had a tiny table in there with a chair where she apparently ate her meals. There were cans of Ensure on the table. There was a little dresser that was pushed up, blocking the window because she liked to bang on the window and yell hello to people. She was living on the top floor of a townhome with lots of stairs and had bone-on-bone osteoarthritis. She wasn't able to walk around. She was on a mattress on the floor. That is where she died. She was 50 pounds. And we know from testimony that somebody from Kinsight was in the home on the same floor as her bedroom, looking at the bedroom right next door to Florence's for a new client, as they call them, and never looked in on Florence 4 times. 4 times. And we also heard testimony from the CEO of Kinsight and from 2 of the home share coordinators from Kinsight that nobody was fired after Florence died. They continued with their jobs until 2022 when they left on their own accord, as they said. So, it's shocking. If somebody would have looked in on Florence, she could be here today.
Yeah, it's a lot. Community Living put out a statement saying that they welcome these recommendations. Are you hopeful that they'll pay attention to them and actually put them into action?
Well, the short answer is no. I'd like to be hopeful. I prefer to be glass half full, but I also, you have to look at the past to determine the future. And the past shows us that the Auditor General had a damning report on home share with CLBC in 2021. And that's a report that they got a big failure on. There were 5 recommendations and it was damning. We tried to get that put in as evidence because it was referred to so many times during the inquest. And the inquest lawyer argued that the jury didn't need to see it, and the coroner accepted that. So the jury never got to see that Auditor General's report. CLBC claims that they have completed all of those recommendations. There's been a lot of reports on CLBC over the 20 years. They've only been around for 20 years, which sounds like a long time, but they have way more reports than any Crown Corporation should have. So, am I hopeful? I guess I have to be. I have to be hopeful that this is it. That Florence's death will create systemic change so that this never happens again. But we know it's happening. We know that people are. I mean, your Global has done many stories on people who have suffered, who are under the care of CLBC, and some have been very recent. So I guess the answer is, the right answer is, yes, I'm hopeful because I have to be, but I'm also skeptical.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and for the work that you're doing to help people in need and people living with Down syndrome. They are very much worth the time, indeed. Thanks, Tamara.
Yes, they are.
Tamara
Thank you.